So, good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. Today I was thinking of sharing a passage from Venerable Acharya Mun's spiritual biography by Ajahn Mun. This section is something that really inspired me when I started cultivation, especially in the monastic life, because it actually describes what happens when Acharya Mun awakened, when he became an Arahant. And why is it inspiring for me? Well, I actually grew up kind of here in America, and I have a scientific Western education, so you could say I want things to be kind of proved to me. You know, say, oh, there's this or that. Sometimes I read in the sutras. They seem long ago and far away. And I go, I guess they're kind of interesting, but I don't know how to really relate to it. But Venerable Acharya Mun actually, is somebody that I know. Say it this way: I know people who knew him. Right? We know Ajahn Amaro, Ajahn Sumedho, Ajahn Pasano, and their teacher was Ajahn Chah. And Ajahn Chah met Ajahn Mun. And Ajahn Mun was quite pivotal for Ajahn Chah's spiritual practice, teaching him about how to uphold the precepts. So someday I say, oh, there's a real person. And then within the Thai forest tradition, he's actually seen kind of like the father of the Thai forest tradition in modern times. So highly respected. And the monk who wrote this biography was also highly respected. To say, they've taken, you could say, vows on truth, on being honest. And so they're reporting what, at least for me, I have faith, what they experienced or what they heard. And so when I read, I go, interesting. And it really makes a lot of the sutras come to life because I can see it in a real person that I can at least relate to experience. So here is the section. It's in the section called "A Heart Released," and it's probably about halfway into the chapter. And it starts with, at dusk, Acharya Mun began walking meditation, focusing on paticca samuppada, that's dependent origination, right? The 12 links of conditioned arising, as the theme of primary relevance to this level of contemplation. Starting with avidya pachaya sankhara, that's ignorance conditions activities. That's the first link in the 12 links, right? He became so intrigued by the subject of dependent origination that he was soon investigating it to the exclusion of all else. By the time he sat down at about 9 o'clock, his mind was concentrated solely on scrutinizing avidya, that's ignorance, examining each of the interdependent conditions through to the logical conclusion, then reversing the order to arrive back at avidya. Contemplating thus, he deliberated back and forth, over and over, inside the chitta, that's the mind-heart, the focal point where birth, death, and kaleshas, that's the afflictions, converge with the principal cause of vidya. Now just to let you know, Ajahn Mahaprabhu is a boxer, so he really writes this in a kind of a boxing way. He says, seated in meditation late that night, the crucial moment had arrived. The battle lines were drawn. Supreme mindfulness and supreme wisdom, the razor-sharp weapons against avidya, an enemy especially adroit at repulsing their advances and then counterattacking, leaving its opponents in total disarray. Since time immemorial, no one has dared to challenge its might, allowing avidya, again that's ignorance, to reign supreme and unopposed over the kingdom of birth and death inside the hearts of all living beings. But at 3 a.m. that night, when Acharya Mun launched his final all-out assault, the result was the total destruction of the king's mighty throne and the complete overthrow of his reign in the kingdom of birth and death. Suddenly impotent and deprived of room to maneuver, the king could not maintain his sovereignty. At that moment, avidya perished, victim to a lightning strike of magnificent brilliance. And now what happens? Acharya Mun described how that fateful moment was accompanied by a tremor that appeared to shake the entire universe. Recently we heard about earthquakes from Tom Broker, who's a seismologist. And I mentioned to him, actually in Buddhism we also have the earth shaking when people get awakened. And this is not just the earth shaking, it's the entire universe shaking. Celestial beings throughout this vast expanse immediately paid tribute to his supreme accomplishment, roaring an exclamation of approval that reverberated across the sentient universe and proclaimed the appearance of another disciple of the Tathagata in the world. Overjoyed to have witnessed this event, they were eager to offer their congratulations. Human beings, however, were unaware of the momentous event that had taken place. Occupied with worldly pleasures, they were too oblivious to care that only a moment before, the supreme Dharma had arisen in the heart of a fellow human being. Right? We human beings are just a little bit too lost in our desires and afflictions, and we don't see the profundity of what happened. When the awesome moment passed, what remained was Visuddhimagga, or Visuddhidhamma. This is pure Dharma. Visuddhi is pure. This pure Dharma, the true natural state of the chitta, the mind, suffused Acharya Mun's body and mind and extended its light in all directions. The experience aroused an indescribable feeling of great awe and wonder. His customary compassion for the world virtually disappeared, and with it, his interest in teaching other people. He was convinced that this supreme Dharma was far too profound and overwhelming in its greatness for people to ever truly understand. So he became disheartened in this respect, feeling disinclined to teach others. He felt it was enough to simply enjoy this wonderful Dharma alone, while still living in the midst of the conventional world. Acharya Mun reflected at length that night on the beneficence of the Lord Buddha. This supreme teacher, having fully realized the truth, taught people who were receptive to his message so that they too could attain genuine deliverance. It was obvious that not a single falsehood was concealed anywhere within the Buddha's teaching. He spent the rest of that night tirelessly paying homage to the supreme virtues of the Lord Buddha. Very interesting, right? Upon awakening, what happens? You have profound gratitude. Acharya Mun had always been compassionate, deeply sympathetic to the spiritual state of fellow human beings. But his citta had just attained a clarity that was so extraordinary in its brilliance and purity that he felt he could not possibly explain the true nature of it, the Dhamma, to others. Even if he tried, ordinary people with kleshas could never hope to attain this exalted state of mind. More than that, hearing him speak in such superlatives, they could accuse him of insanity for daring to teach the world something that no good, sane person would ever discuss. He believed it unlikely that there would be enough sympathetic people to generate his enthusiasm for teaching. He was free to live a life of solitude for the remainder of his years. It was sufficient that he had fully realized his lifelong ambition. He saw no reason to burden himself with difficult teaching responsibilities. It could end up being an example of good causes with bad effects. That is, his compassionate intentions could well turn into harmful results for contemptuous people. In the Pali Canon, they describe that the Buddha, upon awakening, actually was disinclined to teach, and it required the Brahma Samapati to come down and request the Dharma, saying, please teach the Dharma. There are those with just a little bit of dust in their eyes that could follow the Dharma. Such was Acharya's frame of mind shortly after attaining the supreme Dharma, a time when he had yet to focus on the wider picture. Eventually, his thoughts gathered on the Lord Buddha's guiding role in revealing the correct path of practice. Reviewing his attainment of Dhamma and the path he took, he saw that he, too, was a human being in the world, just like everyone else, and undistinguished by others by any special characteristics that would make him the only person capable of understanding this Dhamma. Certainly others with strong spiritual tendencies were capable of this understanding. By failing to broaden his perspective, his initial outlook had tended to disparage the spiritual tendency of his fellow human beings, which was unfair. So from this profound awakening, he expanded his mind. So he had this deep insight, and then he opened his mind to his fellow living beings. The Lord Buddha did not reveal the path of practice leading to Magga, that's the path, Phala, that's the fruit, and Nibbana, for the benefit of only one individual. This revelation was a gift for the whole world, both his contemporaries and succeeding generation. In total, the number of those who had received Magga, Phala, and Nibbana following the Buddha's teachings is enormous beyond reckoning. In this respect, Acharya Mun's achievement was definitely not unique, though he initially overlooked the capacity of others of similar achievement. So then he continues on describing that he makes sets his intention to teach, and how when he teaches, he has to teach for those who really have true respect in their hearts, not for those who are disrespectful, and that it's the Dharma spoken upon request. Because when it's not spoken upon request, and people are prideful or contemptuous, Dharma can actually be harmful for those beings. So I just maybe share that much. I'll maybe share a little bit more tomorrow because there's a really inspiring passage where it actually describes what the devas say when they come to pay homage to Acharya Mun, describing what they saw when the universe shook. And also Acharya Mun's devotion and gratitude to the Triple Jewel. And so for me, this is inspiring because this is the, you can say, enlightenment of an Arahant. Freedom from suffering, freedom from the kind of ignorance that keeps us in the cycle of birth and death. And I go, wow, this really is amazing. And then you read the suttas, and it's like, interesting, there's a parallel. And then for me, when we then access and read the Mahayana Sutras, I begin to understand the profundity of what the Mahayana Sutras are teaching. Because they're teaching to people like Acharya Mun's potential, leading them from this profound state to the profound state of the Buddha. Okay, so maybe just that much for this morning. And we'll continue to explore Acharya Mun's life tomorrow and maybe for the next few days. Otherwise, wish you a day full of Dharma joy. Maybe we can really reflect on how fortunate we are in this world of confusion, kind of anxiety, stress, that we can find this wonderful Dharma to guide us in our lives. Okay, so let's do 3 steps, 1 bow.